Dominick "Donny Shacks" Montemarano was a Colombo captain who was known to be very close with family boss Carmine Persico. Donny Shacks had a reputation as a ladies' man, and it was once rumoured that he dated model and actress Liz Hurley. Let's check him out. Welcome to OC Shortz, bringing you detailed historical snapshots of the American Mafia and other organised crime. Feel free to subscribe if you like that sort of thing. Today we're going to take a quick look at former Colombo captain Dominick "Donny Shacks" Montemarano, a man who allegedly once dated model and actress Liz Hurley. Dominick Montemarano was born in 1938 and grew up in Brooklyn. As a young man, he became closely associated with Carmine Persico, who was a rising star in the then Profaci crime family. When the Gallo brothers rebelled against family boss Joe Profaci, Dominick Montemarano was initially on their side, due to his close association with his lifelong friend Carmine Persico. Frank Di Matteo wrote in his excellent book on Carmine Persico that Montemarano had been with Carmine since his days on President Street, hanging out with the Gallos. Some sources state that Dominick Montemarano earned his nickname Donny Shacks from being a real ladies' man who shacked up with a lot of beautiful women. After Carmine Persico betrayed the Gallos and flipped to the side of family boss Joe Profaci, Dominick Montemarano, unsurprisingly, also went along with his friend and switched sides as well. On January the 4th, 1962, Donny Shacks, along with Carmine Persico and Jiggs Forlano, entered the famous Copacabana nightclub and delivered a serious beating to Sidney Slater, a man connected with the Gallo crew. As one paper reported, in the presence of more than 100 witnesses, the attackers, Joseph Persico, Jiggs Forlano and Dominick "Donny" Montemarano, punched, kicked and bit Slater and took his wallet. In the article, Carmine Persico was mistakenly called Joseph. Interestingly, it was Sidney Slater who Crazy Joe Gallo was talking to when he made the famous remark, "From now on, Sidney, you can just call the five of us the Barbershop Quintet," after the murder of Albert Anastasia. Sidney Slater would later recall this conversation in an interview that was printed in New York Magazine in 1972, which would help fuel the legend that Joey Gallo was one of the shooters of the Mad Hatter. However, many historians believe that Crazy Joe Gallo was just bragging and that he wasn't actually one of Anastasia's killers, a theory that I've covered in previous videos. On the 7th of January 1962, just 3 days after the Sidney Slater beating in the Copacabana, the police arrested Donny Shacks after witnessing him brawling with two Gallo crew members on a Brooklyn street. When the police approached the fight, the Gallo men ran off, and Montemarano tried to evade capture in a Cadillac, leading to a police chase. He was then arrested for possession of a firearm. It was reported, arrested in a 1960 black Caddy sedan was Dominick "Donny Shacks" Montemarano, 23, of 583 20th Street, Brooklyn, who has a record for policy conviction. Stuck in his belt, police said, was a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver, one of a shipment of 45 stolen from a Hudson River pier almost 4 years ago. The Cadillac that Montemarano was driving was registered in the name of Carmine Persico. Interestingly, in the 1960s, Donny Shacks was also a semi-pro footballer, playing running back for the Mariners. In around 1964, Carmine Persico was elevated to the position of captain in what was now known as the Colombo crime family. In Persico's crew, he had made men such as Joseph Joe Yacovelli, Anthony Tony Shortz Abadamarco and Thomas DeBella, but also a plethora of associates which included names that would become prominent figures in the Colombo family, such as Dominick "Donny Shacks" Montemarano, Gerry Langella, Andrew Mush Russo, as well as the non-Italian Hugh Mcintosh. Donny Shacks would continue to make a name for himself in the criminal world over the next decade, and would be officially inducted into the Colombo crime family in around 1978 at the age of 40. In 1980, Donny Shacks was promoted to the position of captain by Carmine Persico, who by this time was now the official boss of the family. It is alleged that Donny Shacks took over the crew that had at one point allegedly been run by Joseph Little Joey Brancato. Sources also state that the soldiers in Montemarano's crew included the likes of Dominick Little Dom Cataldo, Lawrence Lampazzi Jr., Salvatore Sal Scarpa, brother of Greg Scarpa, and Johnny Green Scimone, amongst several others. When Carmine Persico went to prison in the early 1980s for violating his parole, he would later tell Fred DeChristopher that Donny Shacks was a key figure in running the family whilst he was behind bars. Fred DeChristopher, who was an informer, was quizzed on the stand during the famous commission trial by Assistant US Attorney Michael Chertoff. Chertoff: did he say anything else about the running of his family during that time period? DeChristopher: yes, he said that Gerry Lang and Donny Shacks had the biggest role in running the family while he was in prison. This information can be confirmed by the 1988 testimony of Genovese soldier Vincent Fish-Cafaro, who listed Donny Shacks as an attendee at a commission meeting in 1984, based on information that Anthony Fat Tony Salerno had supplied him with. On October the 24th, 1984, the 46-year-old Montemarano was indicted on racketeering charges along with other high-ranking members of the Colombo crime family, including Carmine Persico and Gerry Langella. Persico and Donny Shacks went on the run, but were eventually betrayed by Fred DeChristopher and arrested on February the 15th, 1985. Dominick Donny Shacks Montemarano was eventually sentenced to 18 years in prison for racketeering. He would serve around 11 years of his sentence, coming out of prison in 1996, therefore missing the Arena-Persico War of the early 1990s. After his release, Donny Shacks moved to the West Coast, settling in California, allegedly to be close enough to visit his old friend and family boss Carmine Persico, who was imprisoned for life in Lompoc Penitentiary. While living in West Hollywood, Montemarano, the charming playboy, would hang out with celebrities including James Caan, Cher's ex-husband Sonny Bono, Larry King and Elliot Gould, and various sports stars. Donny Shacks would throw lavish Monday night football parties, and in the late 1990s would be seen wining and dining with UCLA All-American quarterback Cade McNown and some of his Bruins teammates. The FBI even followed Donny Shacks to a dinner he was having with McNown and McNown's parents in Manhattan. Donny Shacks' links to McNown and other football players led the FBI to investigate a possible points shaving scheme. However, ultimately, nothing came of this investigation, as was reported in 1999. A New York gangster tied to a point-shaving probe at UCLA accompanied star quarterback Cade McNown in the Big Apple the weekend of the Heisman Trophy presentation, a federal source said. FBI and UCLA officials yesterday said a federal investigation into links between Bruin players and Colombo capo Dominick Donny Shacks Montemarano found no evidence of wrongdoing by any football players. Another footballer linked with Donny Shacks was Dallas Cowboys quarterback Troy Aikman. The Daily News reported, the convicted New York gangster who inspired a point-shaving investigation at UCLA through parties attended not only by college players, but by one of the biggest stars in the NFL, Cowboys quarterback Troy Aikman. On 2 occasions, Aikman, the 3-time Super Bowl winner with a sterling reputation, showed up at parties hosted by Dominick Donny Shacks Montemarano, the Daily News has learned. Aikman isn't suspected of any wrongdoing. His agent said Aikman had little contact with Montemarano, a convicted racketeer, whose socialising with UCLA players sparked an FBI probe. In 1998, after Sonny Bono had died in a skiing accident, it is alleged that Donny Shacks was a pallbearer at his funeral. In 2001, Dominick Montemarano was all over the Hollywood gossip columns, after he was seen escorting model-turned-actress Liz Hurley on shopping trips, and holding hands with her at dinners. Rumours of a romance between the 63-year-old Montemarano and the 35-year-old Hurley spread across the newspapers. This link didn't surprise a source who knew Donny Shacks, who said, "He was always a charming, charismatic guy." Dominick Montemarano even tried acting and appeared in the 2002 film Night at the Golden Eagle. Since his release from prison, Donny Shacks had avoided any charges from the authorities until October 2001. Montemarano had been babysitting the two young children of his 26-year-old girlfriend, Nancy DePonce. When she came home from a night out later than Donny Shacks expected, the aging Colombo mobster was furious and assaulted her during an argument. At the 2003 trial, it was said that Montemarano ripped off her clothes, beat her with a telephone, bit her thigh, and threatened to kick her skull in. By the time of the trial, DePonce and Donny Shacks had patched things up and were living together. And DePonce even tried to recant her statement that she'd given the night of the assault. However, no one was convinced by DePonce's U-turn, and Montemarano was sentenced to 2 to 4 years. Donny Shacks served 2 years, but then the feds charged him with parole violation relating to the assault and added a further 2 years. After serving a total of 4 years, Montemarano was released from prison in 2007. He remained out of trouble for the rest of his life until he passed away due to a COVID-related illness on January 10th, 2021. Dominick "Donny Shacks" Montemarano was 82 years of age when he died. I hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching.